Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
Audio rolling. All right, welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast inside the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And we're rolling towards something so creative, keeping it different, keeping it fresh. And today is someone that is a part of something near and dear and close to me, the Hope Village Farmers Market. One of the people in the market. I met her at the kickoff and launch. She's a chemist. So it's already like a chemist, young people that are chemists. And when I say young, like young person that's a chemist, a beauty chemist. She makes her own cosmetics. This is very important when we think about the Black community. And just affable, warm spirit, heck of an entrepreneur. For Her Cosmetics is the brand. And you can't think of a better name than that. Alyssa Space, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Everything's cool. So we usually start these Detroit is Different interviews with a classic Detroit story and your background. And we're going to get into a whole lot more because you have something unique that you bring to the table, to the market for our people. But your Detroit story, what's your tie to the city of Detroit? Your family's ties to Detroit? What brought you here or your people here?
Well, my mom is originally from Detroit. She grew up here, and then I actually moved here when I was in first grade. So I've been pretty much a Detroiter my entire life. And I went to Detroit Public Schools, matriculated through middle school and into high school. And then I actually have been a part of the community as far as like chemistry goes and STEM for the past 5 years. So.
Okay, so before we get into all of that, let's get more into your mom. You said your mom is from the D. Was she born here, or were her parents from someplace else and made their way here?
My grandmother is originally from Mississippi, but yes, my mother was born here. She went to Cass Tech, so yes, she's a technician.
Okay. So Mississippi, that's the roots, but your mom made her way here. What neighborhood?
Let me think. I know that it was considered the hood. I don't know exactly. But I actually have to ask her. Wow. Okay. But from the west side. I know the side at least. Okay.
So from the west side. Yes. And then along this journey you moved here the first grade. Yes. You remember the neighborhood you moved to when you got here?
It was near Redford.
Okay.
So we actually lived with my grandmother when I was younger, right off of Evergreen and Grand River. So yeah, I remember that.
Okay, so West Side community. What was it like coming to Detroit? I don't know where you were coming from, but what do you remember coming here in the first grade as a child?
Well, I came from Chicago, so it was a little different because Chicago is like super big. But the neighborhood, I went to the neighborhood school at that time, and then I actually ended up going to Flix, which is Foreign Language Emerging Cultural Studies School, and I actually learned French there. But I like the schools, I like the neighborhoods. I feel like the area that I grew up in was a really nice part of Detroit too. So,
okay,
yeah.
All right, and Flix is one of those. It's a program in school. When people talk about Detroit Public Schools being this, that, and the other, Flix is like a shining star. So it's a very immersive foreign language experience for a student. Meaning that like if you start at Flix and you're in second grade and you have Japanese, you're going to be speaking Japanese probably half the day, if not more. So it's not like. It's not like how you are on Duolingo trying to learn Spanish. It's like, seriously, know what I'm saying? Like an immersive experience. And a lot of the students there have traveled internationally at grade school levels.
Yeah, I actually, when I was in fifth grade, one of my best friends, her grandmother was a performer in Germany. So we actually went to Germany and France when I was in fifth grade. And I was like, that was my first time out of the country, actually.
Okay. And those are some experiences connected to a Detroit public school that I think a lot of people are unaware of. and even that school. Did you kind of notice a difference in your school experience, you think, than some of your other friends, or just coming from another school and then ending up at Flix?
I definitely think so. Just the opportunities that were allowed to us, and even going into although I went into a charter school, I was still in a Detroit school. I went to University Prep. After that, I definitely could see the difference from the neighborhood school to Flix to UPA. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So from Flix to UPA, when we think of charter schools, and it's a lot of different discussions and everything, but UPA is one of the anchor schools, I think, that stands out as an institution for many people now. Because now it's UPA is going on graduates that have graduated, especially when we think of the middle school, for decades now. You know what I'm saying? What was that experience like?
So I was actually really close with one of my teachers. We had a homeroom teacher, and essentially he was actually inspired me once I went into college to go into golf, which ended up also creating connections for me. So having these well-rounded teachers that could give you exposure to possibly just things that you wouldn't necessarily see, I guess, in the neighborhood school was definitely beneficial and helped me along my path as I went into high school and college.
And I already know the people watching this are sitting at home saying is midnight golf for DPS kids? Yes, there is midnight golf for DPS kids, and we know that program. But golfing is something that's a different type of activity on board. I mean, first off, access to the courses, access to the gear, so it excludes many people just automatically, let alone black people. I mean, just the history of black people not being allowed in, on golf courses, period. In many country clubs. What was it, that what about that game kind of connected you? I mean, were you watching Tiger Woods at one point in time? Okay, that could be me,
I mean, honestly, I'm not even gonna. My mother, she did push me at first, because at first I was like, I want to play volleyball. Everybody's playing volleyball. And she was like, no, Alyssa, you should play golf like your teacher suggested. And it ended up, I actually got a scholarship to a college, but I ended up not taking it. But it opened up doors. I've been able to golf on PGA Tour type golf courses. So it definitely allowed me to make connections as far as in business, because now when I do fundraisers for my nonprofit, I'm like, oh, let's go to Top Golf, or let's actually go to a golf course and I can play and I can hold a conversation and I can make deals on the golf course. So
okay, so it's not just a hearsay type thing.
Yeah,
okay,
it really works.
It's like one of those things that you picked up, and along this journey, this kind of brings me to. And I want to find more about college and everything, but chemistry, and being a chemist.
Yes.
This is something that, even when I think of it, and I have a healthy network, running across chemists is not it's not like running across a mechanic or, it's a teacher, a entrepreneur, which you are an entrepreneur, but when I think a classic entrepreneur, I own this car lot, and I go to a restaurant, and I own a little bit of a bar, and then I have some insurance company, a tax company, it's different. And when I definitely think about chemistry, I'd assume it's not a lot of us, let alone black women in that field. Yeah. What was it that drew you towards that direction, and how how natural am I just, is this an assumption, or is it it could be a whole little world of chemists out here?
There are networks. However, I do get that a lot when I tell people I'm a chemist, and they say Breaking Bad. I'm like, no, but
they immediately think about they immediately think of making the narcotic.
I'm no,
it's even though rest in peace, the great Cordell Rest said if you could make crack, you could be a chemist.
I'm about to say,
which on paper that sounds cool, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot more going on, because technically that means if you could cook anything, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I could burn something, but I would not want to be in a chemistry lab per se.
No, but honestly, the reason that I got into chemistry, honestly, when I was and this is a story that I always tell because it really like is true. I remember like sitting in my mom's rooms, like taking her perfumes, her lotions, and her sunscreens, and like making these concoctions at like 8 years old, 10 years old, and I'm like, "Here, mom, try this." And she's like, "Girl, stop wasting my stuff."
And your mom actually would try the stuff that you make.
I mean, I would kind of force her to. You know, you got to support your kids. So like, I'm about to break out from this, but
yeah, I was gonna say your mom was running a risk. It's like I'm gonna put this on my top
Let's
elbow.
do a patch test. Yeah, do a patch test. But she literally like encouraged me to be creative. Like I was always into science experiments, science competitions, and like at that time it was considered like lame or like, oh, you're like a nerd, and I didn't really like the treatment about like in that area. But as I grew older, I was like, okay, like I understand things that a lot of people don't necessarily see or understand when they see it on paper. And like organic chemistry was like super easy to me. Like I could just literally see like the chemical formulas on the like paper come out. But I really just got into it because my mom, she supported me. She has been like my #1 fan since I was a kid, and I have always thanked her for that and just pushing me in the right direction. But I don't know, I just always have been really curious naturally. So like, why does that do that? Why does this work this way? Like I'll just think like that. So
all right, so with that being said, you're taking me back to 10th grade because that's when I had chemistry through the then I was going to King MSAT program. I want to say, who was that? Miss Barton. Miss Barton knew my dad too. And I actually got a B in that class. It was you know, I don't know. Everybody else was like, how are you getting a B? I'm like, I don't even know, really. People was like, it's because your dad know her. I don't think that was why. But I even remember the periodic table. You know what I'm saying? I'd be sitting there and they'd be like, you're going to need to use this one day. I'm like, I ain't going to be using this never. You know, so like trying to learn the chart and figure these things out. In gardening now, it's become more prevalent in understanding different things. I'm going to be buying some topsoil today, and even seeding is some grass seed I have for an event that I have coming up, and where things go, like nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon. Like I'm looking at this stuff and learning more about it. And I'm like, damn, this is like, I guess I am sort of using it. So, with this, when you say organic chemistry, just even breaking this down, like, what was it that drew you in that direction? Where you just always had like a curious mind about this type of stuff, like, or was it just one of those things that it just was simple for you? Like, was it easy, or was it one of those things that you found fascinating and it just led you down a path that made it easier?
It was definitely kind of like in between. There was definitely some joint there, because I will not say that chemistry was easy in college, like college level. I definitely had like my struggles there, but I definitely was intrigued and drawn into chemistry. So it made sense. I already had the knack and the curiosity for science, and then like actually seeing the technical side behind it, I was like, oh wow, this is cool. Like literally so when you mix two things, like there's a chemical formula for each of those two substances, and when you put those together, you're gonna have a chemical reaction, whatever it creates. And so literally being able to see that on a molecular level for me was what was like intriguing, I guess.
All right, so when you talk about molecular level, let's roll it back again. Like I say, a lot of us haven't heard this since 10th grade. You know what I'm saying? So molecular level, does that mean like you're looking through a microscope, or does that mean it just is what it is? Like, what is that?
Well, not necessarily looking through a microscope, but knowing that this is the chemical like formula of this product. So like, for instance, when you have like, I'm just going to say something easy, like sodium and chloride. If you put sodium and chloride together, like you would have Na, and then you would have Cl2. So if you're looking at the periodic table of elements, that's basically like table salt. But what am I trying to say? I'm trying to make it simple.
You said so those are the elements of table salt.
Those are elements that you're putting together essentially to create this substance. So.
Okay, so if it's snowing outside and I had some sodium, and I had what are the others? Chloride, and then I needed some salt for outside.
Or sodium bicarbonate, actually, but
Okay, so I would see. There we go. It gets deeper. I would combine these, and then it's like in combining these in like I guess a lab or something, or I guess the lab could be my basement.
Yeah, that's where we started. I mean, I started in my mom's kitchen, so
and then see what works. Now, for this and just knowing the right amounts and all of this stuff, along this journey, you know, we do remember, all of us from chemistry class, it was certain things that we did in chemistry class where it's like goggles, protective gloves, PPE. And we had to wear like the smock and all of this stuff. And then it seems excessive. It was like gas extinguisher, fire extinguisher,
water showers.
Yes, it was a lot into that space. With our chemistry class, and I think we only did a couple experiments. I want to say we did more of that type of stuff in biology, you know. But all of this, as you were learning this, you were in class, and it was just like
it was coming, yeah. And it's funny because, like, I love my high school, but like one of my teachers, she was my biology teacher. She just swore up and down that because there was only like 5 black girls in my class, because I went to Sacred Heart, which is it was majority white people basically that went to the school, and it was only 40 people in my class, my graduating class, but there were only about 6 of us that were women of color. And she just, I don't know, like she just doubted me too when I was in 9th grade. And I know these stories, the rappers always say, my teacher said I was never going to, but my story's not like that. But she did, I think that kind of gave me that push too, because she didn't think that, 1, I belonged there, and then 2, she thought that I was just like a stereotypical, like this, I don't know, these are her words. She thought that I was in a gang with the other girls that were in our class. And I'm like, girl, I don't even know how to spell gang. Like, stop playing. Like, so I felt like I had something to prove, especially once I got out of high school into college. And I definitely proved her wrong.
Wow, that's heavy. Like, I mean, race comes up on this show often. And now we definitely have to walk down that street a little bit. So an event like that happens in 9th grade. Because 9th grade is you're younger and you're learning things, but it's still a strong trust in adults. As much as those 9th graders are challenging you as a parent, they're challenging parents, but outside world is still like a trust in like adults and everything. Something like that can shake a 14-year-old.
Definitely.
How do you respond to that? Like, did you tell your mother? Did you tell like a counselor, other friends? Like, how did you respond to that?
So she had a conversation about this with my mom, and at that point I just felt like I wanted to be rebellious towards this lady, because I'm like, first of all, you're assuming things, you don't even know me, and this is my 9th grade year, first semester, so you haven't really, except for in class. So to assume those things about me, I knew that I had to, I guess, like, make a way for myself to shatter those stereotypes, because even now, like, even though, like, what you said was harmless, but just saying, like, oh, you're a chemist, like, it's almost like there's doubt there. And it's like, why is that not normal? Why is that not normalized? Or why is it because we don't see it enough, or because we don't believe that that's something that people of color or people that look like me are doing? So I think that's why I have, like, a really big push with my STEM program, to get more students of color, especially girls, into these fields, because I don't want people to say, like, oh, you're a chemist. I want them to be like, oh yeah, she's a chemist, because like you were saying, like, and like I said, there was no harm there, but it's just, I want it to be normalized. Like, I want girls to not feel like, oh, like I'm stepping out of the box. Like, no, this is normal. This is something that instead of 1% of the population, we have like 10 plus. But yeah, I think. Sorry, that idea was like a little rough. And no offense, but you need to say it, because I have not met outside of Miss Barton, my chemistry teacher, and I mean, it's just like, even with the white folks in my social circle, it's just like meeting a chemist. It'd be like almost meeting an astronaut. Like, you're an astronaut. Like, how did you get into that? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh man, on the east side, it was this program. It's like, for real? Seriously, astronauting? You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things that it could be both too. It could be
even in my statement, it could be some doubt in the statement. And, I'm not one to believe so much in absolutes. It's like, at what percentage?
Right.
And even when it comes to prejudice, as I often tell people, like, prejudice just exists in society.
Right.
The challenge becomes when we marry ourselves to the prejudice to prove what our original prejudice was. Once it's established that it's like, oh, she know chemistry, then I shouldn't hold on. But it's like, no, but that's like low level chemistry. It's like, no, that's the extremist high level of chemistry of the people I know. Because right now, when it comes to the authority on chemistry in my mind, and probably a lot of these people watching Detroit is different. Yeah. Alyssa Space, you have galvanized the Space as the subject matter expert in chemistry, and definitely that shatters the perspective of what we've been perceived to see as a chemist.
Right.
Because what we've been perceived to see as a chemist is, I'm always one to talk about media and packaging, is like, like some Einstein type dude, Doc from Back to the Future, you know what I'm saying? Some old white guy, you know what I'm saying, with crazy hair and shabby clothing, you know what I'm saying, and thick glasses. We don't think,
beauty chemist.
Yeah, we don't think exactly. A young black woman, vibrant, melanin popping. It's like, we don't think that. We think, you know what I'm saying? We think something that has been, accepted in our minds just through media, because it's like, who do you meet that's in this space?
Right. It's funny, though, too, actually, that you brought up the astronaut, because when I was younger, Mae Jemison actually was like the first black woman to space. And I used to get teased all the time because my last name was Space. But I'm like, you know what? I like her. So I literally, I actually got to go see her speak at Western after I graduated in like 2016, or I think it was the following year, 2017. And it was just like, it was like so surreal, because I'm like, girl, I saw you in my textbooks when I was in high school, and now I actually get to meet you in person. So I know the importance of like being a leader or being like a pillar in your community, showing people that this is possible, that you can do this. So I definitely, it was just funny you said astronaut. I'm like, oh my gosh, Mae Jemison. But yeah, definitely an inspiration.
Now in that same space, no pun intended, you learn in chemistry, like when do you get to a point where you start branching off into like something more specific? Because I assume obviously it's food chemist right now, because God knows, we looking at what the hell is in food. It's beauty chemist is I'm sure obviously a lot of chemists work on like right now, how much is in cars and automotive, like oil and stuff like that. Like, when do you start transitioning from like, I guess, like core chemistry and then into like something more specific of like your own discipline? And then I have another question on top of that, is like, at what point do you learn your discipline to now say, all right, I learned core, I learned niche, but now I'm making my own product. So it's like, like at what point is it to that?
Originally, like when you go through college, you essentially take general chemistry unless you have like a minor in something in particular, like immunology or something, like whatever it may be. But for me, I just took general chemistry because I knew I wanted to I guess I wanted to do wet lab. So that's basically like bench work where you do testing and quality assurance. Because my first job, my first corporate job, because I actually worked with children with autism first for like 6 months. But my first job, I worked at Pfizer as a quality assurance chemist. And
okay, now with as that, it's basically you're testing I'm guessing the formulas, for lack of a better term. I mean, I'm hoping I'm saying this right, but the formulas that have been established from other doctors or chemists, and you're assuring that that whatever was written is like, oh, nah, this is smooth, this is cool.
So essentially, as a quality assurance chemist, I was testing the raw materials that were going into their final products to make sure that they met standards and quality, because this is an FDA regulated lab. And I have to make sure, I'm like, okay, the water levels are here, the pH of this is here, because this is something that the body is consuming. So I have to be sure that before we put these things in there, that nothing is off. per se.
Okay. Because the raw material, how often are raw materials, which I mean, I guess that could make sense. Because like if I buy nitrogen and it says it's at this level, or like, no, let's just go with the example you said, pH levels in water. And more people are doing water testing now, especially when we think about, hey, shout out and prayers up to the people in Benton Harbor dealing with like the same type of tragedy that the people in Flint were dealing with. And it's a less known story today. But it's still, you know, heavy. So like when we think of like lead testing, pH balance testing, it's like water is water is water is water, but it ain't necessarily water because it's so many other elements that go into purifying the water and go into like even the way that it's dispersed through like possibly your home through the piping system. Like it, you know what I'm saying? You're buying this product, but it's not necessarily that.
So speaking of water, so I actually had a second job in quality assurance, and it was a metal coating or plating company in Ferndale, and my job was to test the water levels. So because they would release this into Ferndale water. So there were certain ppms, which is parts per million of metal that is allowed into your public drinking water. And this is a, you know, industrial company. I'm not gonna name them, but basically we were allowed to release like magnesium, nickel, lead into the drinking water. And
you got all my conspiracy people. I told you.
Look, they gonna put me down for telling this one. No, they do. So they literally, like, if the water levels, if the metal levels are too high, they would like basically block their drain to the city, because like, okay, they're gonna have to do extra cleaning, because the city would do extra cleaning on top, but as a manufacturer, you have to meet these certain levels or they're going to sue you. They're going, because you at the end of the day, the city doesn't want to get sued by the residents if someone goes and takes a water test and they're like, why is it like 10 parts per million of nickel and lead in my water and it's supposed to be less than 0.01. So that we are needed definitely there, but that's basically like where I stepped in, or I came in and made sure that this company wasn't releasing this poisonous or water into the city. But I don't know. As far as food testing and things, I haven't really done research in that area, research and development, but definitely water and definitely pharmaceuticals. They're testing to make sure that it's safe for the body. They're testing to make sure that they aren't killing their people, basically. So to balance that out, like I know like with pH, it's like pH up, pH down. Like is that also the role as a chemist? Like when you test something like that, it's like, hey, this is what's happening. I think you can do this and that will address that. Like what happens? Because like does it just end up being like, hey, it's a problem, it is what it is, maybe you need to like sometimes they do it that way.
How does you know what I mean? How as a chemist would be your role to like also come up with courses of action to address this?
Yes, so
through the chemical reactions,
or the chemical processes. So if the water was too acidic, we would have to figure out how we could lower the acidity so that it could be more basic before we released it. So you're also problem solving. So based off of the parameters that you have for like this set of water samples, you're going to test it, get your results, and then you're going to actually figure out, okay, so how do I lower the nickel? Do I need to add, I don't know, I can't even remember the things we were adding to this water, but there were different like sodiums that would essentially absorb.
And that makes sense. So,
yeah, that we would add to lower it, or I don't even, like I said, I don't remember everything, but there were tons of different methods that we took on like smaller samples to do to a bigger batch.
And that's the other thing, that because just like with cooking, now this is some chemistry you guys can follow. You know, when you cook for yourself, it's like, okay, pot of spaghetti for you and 4 is different than family reunion 5 plans of spaghetti. You can't just say, all right, I usually use 2 bottles, so now since it's that, I'm gonna just multiply it by 25. Like sometimes
the what's the word, they could be off if you try to size up a batch, basically. But that's where the trial and error comes in. You're testing over and over again. So, and then of course you would when I'm talking about like 1,000+ gallons
that's
type of
But I'm sure the sample you have is probably like maybe even
smaller
less
than a water bottle.
So because you can't take a sample of, you can't take let me get just 150 gallons and just test that. You can't do that.
So it definitely, like I said, it was trial and error. I really enjoyed it, actually, just because, like, I mean, you're not supposed to mess up, but it allowed you to learn, things on your own, and you can mess up before, of course, you release it, but we were on time restraints because they're always pumping out water.
But this is also where, I guess, statistics and chemistry kind of match, because we talked about sample and representative samples, and you need to have, like, here we go, a classic one for you statisticians, margin of error.
Yes.
So you need to know margin of error from taking different randomized samples and then get to the margin of error that's needed for acceptance. There's a lot more eyes. I don't even want to get into everything, COVID related with vaccines and things like that. But one of the big key things that really opened up people's mind, taking us back to stats class, which I guess couples with chemistry class a little bit, was like, it needs to be at a certain level of margin of error for certain FDA approvals or what can. And then, then you start looking more and more. It's like, wow, it's pharmaceuticals that are, approved, then denied, then approved again, and denied, and then tested again. And, recall. Like, it's like, wow, this is like a industry that's like a lot more fluid than back to what I love, the marketing of like, oh, here we go, it's just in your face and it's just here forevermore. And how things go. Like even the baby powder situation.
Talc, There's a lot of products actually that have chemicals that are cancerous or carcinogenic because the FDA allows a certain amount of exposure to humans. So a lot of times, and this actually kind of goes into why I started an all-natural cosmetic line, because the FDA regulations on cosmetics are super loose in the U.S. Like if you go to like Europe, they're a little bit more strict, but here in the U.S., like essentially because of mass production, they allow, like, for instance, like a gallon of foundation. Like we allow one roach in there because this is the size of the batch, and we understand that in a warehouse that contamination happens, this, that, and the third happens. So it's almost kind of like it's what they allow so that these companies don't get in trouble in a way, but at the same time they also allow like different chemicals into products because of they need to have preservatives. They're sitting on the shelves for who knows, like 6 months before they even hit the store. So they know that, okay, they can use this amount to the body because it won't get them sick. But I mean, over time, it may cause some side effects, but that's okay. It's 10 years later, they won't know. They don't care.
Like, so I would say it's they're letting it go because it produces money. Essentially. So like, and we understand the relationship between corporations and America. I mean, just clearly. But let's get further into that. Cosmetics, beauty, it's definitely a space when we think of it, that it's great seeing a renaissance of Black women entering more and more in that space. Like I look at what Rihanna does with Fendi or Fenty, and it's like, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I look at like even like the natural hair movement, even my natural hair that's here, and then just a lot more natural products that in my mind Black women have always kind of like been in that mix, but now it's more front facing, it's more marketed, it's more in front of people's faces. And so making natural products, why do you think it's such a call to action for these natural products, and why are Black women clamoring for that?
Well, for me personally, I think that more people are becoming aware. So like myself, educating the masses on the ingredients that you use in everyday products, from toothpaste to your lotion, because these things are going literally into your body. Your body is absorbing them. Skin is the biggest organ, and we all know you put, well, everybody doesn't, but you lotion every day. So paying attention to what you're putting on your hair, your skin, into your mouth, into your body has been a movement, I think, because we have been so, like, I guess, traumatized by the products that we have been using, the food we have been eating, and people are like waking up, I guess, now, and are realizing, like, okay, this is the one body that I'm going to have, so I need to make sure that I'm putting the right things on it and into it. As for hair, I think more women are starting to just love their natural hair more. I don't really think that has to do with, like, necessarily the chemicals, because there were tons of chemicals with the perms and the, you know, the heat and the rollers, whatever. But I think women are starting to, like, Black women in particular, are starting to love their hair more and their natural selves more so than getting what is supposed to be like the European standard of having straight black hair, jet black hair, and the wigs. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love me a good wig. I was just telling you about that earlier, but I definitely have embraced my own natural hair more, because I was just telling you about the big chop I did. I wanted to really, like, experience my hair for what it really was, because I always felt like I was covering it up, and I didn't always wear it out or style it because I didn't really know how to, because I was doing that. So now that I'm able to really, like, experiment with it as an adult, I feel like I love it more now because I know what to do with it. And I think that is kind of the story for a lot of other Black women too.
Okay, and you spoke to a couple different things that I want to, you know, get further into. But when we even talked about, like, on the skin or in the hair, My Natural Hair podcast, one of the big products they use is through Zeresh. And it was unique when I met Zeresh a couple years ago. She was like, you know, you shouldn't put anything in your hair or on your body that you feel like you wouldn't want to eat yourself. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I never thought about anything like that. And then she turned, and this is like one of the big things I think that started maybe about 7 years ago, where it's like, man, like, even your deodorant. And I'm like, what you mean your deodorant? And they like, it's aluminum in your deodorant.
Metal.
And I felt like I was smoking cigarettes or something, trying to find, like, a natural deodorant.
And then the transition is something else.
You know, so it's like, all right, which natural deodorant do I use, or do I just go out here and it's like, whoa, I'm out here like, whoa, you know what I'm saying?
Forget it.
Exactly. So even a product like that, you know, as this awakening. Because for some people, yes, using, and I'm becoming one of them some people. If you give me a regular speed stick, I'm like, oh, this is like cigarettes. You know? How, like, that type of awakening, you know, and then what happens even in that for that person watching that may not even know what happens if I continue using this aluminum based deodorant for, you know, I want to say, like, I started using deodorant when I was 10.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If I make it to
life.
70.
There's, like, different
every day, possibly twice.
These are, so you're blocking, like, your natural sweat glands. And I still personally use like regular deodorant, but I know, like, my mentor, she's been talking about it because she has a natural like skincare line, and I want to make the transition. And I think everybody should too, but just when you're ready, you're ready. But over time, like, you're actually, like, because we have different, like, thyroids around our body, you're, like, blocking these glands from naturally sweating. Like, sweat is natural. Even with, I'm trying to think, like, different perfumes and stuff like that, because I used to stay away from perfumes when I was younger because I would have allergic reactions. But literally, like, it's a natural function of the body. I know we don't want to have odor and things like that, but over time, like, you can like, these products can actually cause cancer. Like,
so blocking a sweat gland can lead to cancer.
Well, I'm not making medical claims, y'all.
I got you. Right.
But I know that some products, after repeated use, they do have side effects. Like, it's just known that, like, for instance, the baby powder. If you keep using the baby powder over and over and over and over again with this talc, which is a cancer-causing chemical, carcinogen, you might get ovarian cancer from that because you're constantly using it, applying it to the body, and the organs can only rid your body of so many toxins. Like, we overworking our kidneys and livers all the time. So, yeah.
Okay.
It's possible.
So with, like, as this enlightenment for natural products comes, it naturally leads America to commoditize. That's the term I want to use. Even what becomes natural.
Right.
So you're a chemist. So when I pick up something and it says it's natural, is it like, in my mind, just knowing in America, it's probably like a percentage of chemicals that can be in something before you can call it natural or not natural. So it's like, all right, look, 65% is natural enough.
That's over.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what is, like, is it even barometers on that?
So I don't know if you remember, but I was mentioning that the regulations for the FDA are really loose. And so, like, you can put natural on a product if it has a plant-based like product in it, basically.
Okay, when you say a plant-based product in it,
A.
does that mean A?
One.
meaning like, hey, yeah, just throw some kale in there. Just for,
it's natural.
We're gonna call it, I know. It's like, throw some kale in that.
And that's kind of how
throw
organic
some kale
came.
in the cigarettes. These some natural squares.
Basically. But no, that's literally like the word organic kind of came about because now it's like, okay, this is all organic. That means it was grown. Everything that's in it was grown versus something that was manufactured in a lab.
Okay.
And so, but then people kind of played on that. And it was funny you mentioned Fenty because they used to say something about, had these claims that, oh, all natural. And then they stopped doing that because that wasn't the truth, obviously.
Okay. So natural has to label something natural, it's a standard. And to label something organic, it's also a standard.
Right.
Now, as I'm into growing food in my garden and everything, even with that, I know it's other layers because, like, I have sometimes I use the cocoa, which is cocoa mixed with soil. So, like, for a person that knows, like, cocoa, it like has more like those little white pellets, and it's like a softer grain of soil. So what it does is it absorbs more water so that I can keep more water in what I'm growing.
Retains it.
Exactly. Now, within that ain't like dirt from the ground per se. But I assume if I really was into farming, I would be going like 45 levels deep of like how to commoditize and grow what I need most. Like if farming was my business. So is it even standards on like how natural the farm? Like, do you have to buy from this? Like, does it go from this is natural, this is organic, this is organic based from an organic based farm? Like, does it go that with organic based composting, with organic based I guess, like, what would we say, pesticides, because that's one of the biggest. I'm fighting a battle with slugs right now with my collard greens, and spraying the neem oil and the peppermint oil, and looking at the neem oil and the peppermint oil, like, okay, does it just say neem oil on here, or does it say a bunch of stuff that's like colorless? You know what I'm saying? If I start seeing ingredients with X, Y, L, Z, any of those last 5 letters of the alphabet, I start thinking, okay, this is probably something.
This probably not good.
Probably ain't nothing that follows the Zeresh test of eating.
Have you ever been to the grocery store and you see like the regular bananas and then the organic bananas?
Yeah.
Do you know why they're separate?
I assume preservatives.
Yeah, so like a lot of fruit and vegetables, they have to use like pesticides and things like that to grow them. Even like when you go and you see like, I don't eat this, but like catfish, like you'll see like farm raised catfish and then like wild catfish. So literally they're like kind of indirectly like telling you like how this was raised or how it was actually grown. So, I'm not a nutritionist either, but I know that I try to pay attention to the things that I eat, like when I pick up even produce, because there's so, like, you hear about the E. coli outbreaks all the time in fruits and vegetables and things like that. So it's a tricky game out here, honestly. But
in your space, though, the beauty space,
there too,
I think one of the challenges becomes, I think with Black women, especially, just understanding Black skin in the shades. When I think of fashion and beauty, those can be luxury, high-end industries. And that's what's so trippy sometimes when I watch so many Black folks clamor for like that high-end fashion. And I'm like, this really was designed for, European women, you know what I'm saying, or European men, probably from like Italy and Spain. So
Right.
like if you're, you know, a black man framed 6'2", you know what I'm saying, and you're wearing Gucci, I'm not necessarily saying it looks
Tom
off,
Ford.
but it just wasn't designed.
With us
This
in
Louis
mind.
Vuitton was not designed for you in space. So it's like that black woman in this, you know, I don't know, let's say like a whatever, like a Versace dress or something. It, and then this black woman walks in with like something like hand woven from Ghana, you know, kente cloth, and it's like, damn, she may get more attention because it's going to fit with that in mind. I'd assume beauty products have to be that, just on the strength of like, you know, in most of my journeys at Wash, they were even saying just like the shades of foundations, the way lipstick would look, what would be seen as natural, just isn't as representative throughout the spectrum of what black women represent. And I think Rihanna was looking to kind of introduce that more in that space.
She did.
But many others have been in that space. It's just her brand kind of, because of her popular celebrity, moved it to the forefront too.
Yeah. Honestly, I think like before, like 10 years ago, a lot of makeup companies did not have dark foundation. Like you literally would have to like search high and low for that. Like after she released, like I think it was like 30 or 40 different foundations, everybody was scrambling like, oh shoot, we got to make sure we got foundation for everybody now. Because when you go in, you see like 1,000 colors of white. It's like, how many whites are there? Like we need shades with like actual pigment in it. So in that, you know, in that realm, makeup just recently really became more inclusive. For a long time, even like the shades of red lipstick, like I used to hate wearing red lipstick when I was younger because I was a dancer, and we had to wear the blush and the red lips, and I'm like, I look like a clown, literally, because you got me up here with the red cheeks and crazy red lips that doesn't match my undertones. And so when I even went into my lab to make these colors, I made sure that they looked good on the deepest tones to the lightest tones. So, and I feel like when you start with darker, you can lighten it. I know a lot of people say like, oh, start lighter, then you can add more to get to dark. But when I say that, I mean like when I create a color, I want to start on the spectrum of darker skin first, and then I want to kind of like phase it out.
But see, this is where I'm talking about in design and inception, because you're going to think of you first.
Right.
So you're going to think of our people. Whereas historically, probably this was designed more than likely by white men, but you know, and then thinking backwards,
Right.
you know, and then this is also white men's idea of what beauty and beauty standards are too, because that has to be incepted into this whole spectrum as well. So what has been the response as you were making this? Like, and then when did it go from like you in the lab kind of testing and stuff like that to becoming a product for the general public?
Yeah, so I actually started formulation in my mom's kitchen. She had like a dirt room, like where the laundry was, basically where I would do formulation in the back of the house. And I just tested on my skin, my grandmother's, and my mom. So I pretty much stayed in like the darker skin spectrum.
This is after college, during college,
After
before?
college, actually.
Okay.
So this was while I was still working as a quality assurance chemist in Ferndale.
Okay.
So I would work like my little 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift, and then I would come home. I would play in my little lab at the time, and I would just experiment with different like pigments, like different micas, how they work together. And then I would also play around with the raw ingredients that I wanted to use in my actual lipstick. I'm gonna send you some pictures, but I do have like pictures of back in the day when I had my little table. It's probably about this size in the back.
Okay.
Where I would play with these pigments. And essentially I just had my friends like, y'all gotta try this. Come on. Come on, best friend, try this. So those were like my test subjects.
I'm like, let me see your transcript. Let's look at these grades in
I'm
this
like,
class.
If I put it on myself, I'm sure you guys would be fine. Like I wouldn't put something on me that I wouldn't want someone else to wear. So but no, I definitely had some fun experimenting with making the products in the very beginning stage. But now I could just like.
What was the response? Just in the testing.
So my very first year, actually, when I went live for Mother's Day, 2018. I made like $50. I was like, oh, all this work I did to put into this, and I made what? And at the time, I think I was selling my products for like $8 each plus tax or something like that.
So that's 6 sales.
Look, you start from somewhere.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And I was a little discouraged. I kind of went back to the drawing board. I'm like, is it my presentation? Was it the formula? And the formula, my mama always put it to me like, girl, this is too dry. Girl, this is too oily. We need to do this. You need to do that. So like I said, she was always supporting and giving me feedback. So I went back to the drawing board and I actually stopped and relaunched again in 2019.
Okay.
And then that year, I think I was doing like pop-ups here and there. And I'm really comfortable talking about numbers because it's like, I feel like people really get it when you put that in front of them. So like the second year, I think we grossed over like $1,600 in sales and they were still $8 a lipstick. So I was like, okay,
that's good.
That's not bad. Cause I just crossed year 4. So now, I'm like, okay, now I need to just improve the packaging. So just last year we changed like our lip gloss packaging. We used to have like these little like dollar store lip gloss tubes. And now, you know, we got our logo on there. You feel me? But we've improved packaging and people like especially women, they like visually appealing items as well. Sometimes the product don't even got to work. I'm not saying mine don't work, but it doesn't even have to work, and they will use it just because the packaging is pretty. So I noticed a jump in sales. I think by year 3, we did like 36,000 in sales. So I was like, dang, this is and like a 1,800% jump.
Yeah, but also when we think about that also was during the shift during the pandemic too. So that being that you had a business that was ready and adaptable to that is, I mean, hats off to you. So like that's a big accomplishment just anytime growing in sales like that, recognizing the market, seeing the capacity, staying at it. You know, big applause. Like, I mean, staying grounded in that, that's big, you know. And then also being able to shift in that marketplace and have the space and capacity to deliver on the online, in that online space too. That
COVID definitely made us stronger as far as like being able to pivot, improving our online presence. I applied to like 1,000 grants, like, because last year we made over 6 figures, and I have 2 employees now and 10 contractors. So it's not just me now on payroll. So it's like I got to make sure that we're performing and that we're doing what we need to do to stay in business, and then to have like to be able to give my employees and contractors an actual paycheck, not just some change here and there. Like, this is like a real business. We are in stores, like I was telling you, and I understand the importance of like creating jobs for women of color in the city, and making sure that it's like a livable wage, not just, you know.
Okay. now, and we're getting closer to the end, but I still have these questions. So now that you're more in this entrepreneurial space, and that's always the thing with entrepreneurship, it's like you have the work itself, and then you also just have the work of the business, like you say, onboarding contractors, dealing with vendors, meeting with teams, buying supply. I mean, buying vendors yourself, like. It's a lot of other things. Like, how much has the business taken you away from the lab?
So in the beginning, it took me away a lot. Like, I still handle a lot of the meetings and HR things, but now I have a social media coordinator who I have not posted on our social media in 2 years. Okay. I have a web developer, so I don't even know how to work Shopify for real. And she does all of our updates. She keeps our website running, any issues that we have, things like that. So that has given me more time back. I have an accountant who makes sure that like all of our payroll is run properly, make sure that everything in our account is good. Like, okay, you need to watch how much you're spending this month. So it's like those things that are necessary. And then I also have a lead BA who is essentially like a manager. So she manages all the BAs that we have, because we have 8 brand ambassadors. I can't manage all 8.
What is a brand ambassador?
So a brand ambassador is someone who promotes our company, whether it via social media or they do actual pop-ups with us. So I'm at most of the events, but I have other ladies that help me work, because the more people you have there, the more customers you're able to garner. It's kind of like a little hierarchy that helps me run it so that I can focus on formulation. I can focus on looking out for grants for our business. I can focus on our classes that we do with nonprofits and schools. So being able to kind of like let go and allow them to actually take lead in roles has helped me become more productive and has allowed me to scale. And a lot of times, I don't know why, but Black people in business are scared about doing that. And it's like, you got to find your team, your village to help you to grow your business, or you're going to stay where you are.
That's what's up. So, like, in a lot of ways, I'm thinking the brand ambassadors serve in the same capacity of, like, a lot of people think. I don't know if most people know this. You know, the Mary Kay rep is really an idea from the ideation of Madam C.J. Walker.
Right.
So, like, you know, and not just that, like, American business took so many ideas from Madam C.J. Walker. Just like of
Definitely.
Of building what would be brand ambassadors, doing the house party, actually delivering and showing displays of like the person buying your product ended up being the person that sells your product. Like brilliant businesswoman.
Yes.
You know, so that model, as we see, and then as you work that out, I'm sure they can be like, so when you're in the lab, do the ideas come from that team of brand ambassadors? Like, hey, everybody's saying they need a ... You know, can you get in the lab and work that out? Or are you working with other chemists yourself now? Have you onboarded them? Are you contracting with some of them? Like, what is that flow?
I actually have an assistant chemist. One summer, I actually did an internship with a senior chemist who needed a senior project. So she helped with formulation that year. And I was like, oh, my God, I do actually need an assistant in the lab because it helps. And some, like myself, wearing many hats, actually, my web developer she knows our trade secrets, basically. So she actually is a computer science major, but she knows how to get into the lab and make things now. Like, I've worked with her for over 4 years now. So she's very well versed there and helps with that. But eventually I want to, source out. But now that I can keep it in-house, I'm working with the ladies that I do have. So
that's cool.
Yep.
And I met you at the Hope Village Revitalization Farmers Market. So you still engage in community work as well. What is it about the community work and connecting with the schools and the STEM program that you've referenced a couple of times too? What is it about that keeps you motivated to stay tapped into that as you have a corporation that's just growing and growing? And it's a multi-layered corporation. It's a manufacturing, it's a supplier, and it also is it's a point of sale too.
Yes. Well, like I mentioned before, I just really love science, and I really want to get more girls into that field and more students of color in that field. So For Her Cosmetics is STEM based. So we are science, technology, engineering, and math, but we're also all natural, vegan, and cruelty free. So that's our tie. And then a lot of times, I just learned a lot of things when I go into these business incubator programs. But I have my own nonprofit, and basically, I'm gonna just tell you a little secret. But my nonprofit supplies classes to these students, right? But my business sells the products that we use for these programs. So essentially, we're able to get our grants for our nonprofit, and then we buy the supplies that we need to actually do these classes. Cool. So it's an ecosystem, for lack of a better term.
It's like when you're in college and the professor has that book that they wrote, and it's like,
yeah, of course we're going to use this
like,
book, okay? But it's approved curriculum.
I can't get this through check.
But yes, it's a way. It helps, one, my business, and it also, two, helps our community. So that ecosystem is that's why I'm able to go into the community and host.
That's powerful. And then also that means that they're learning directly instead of with the quote unquote standard products. They're learning with products that are for the Black girls. They're learning directly with what they would get into if this is the industry they get into,
right?
As opposed to, like you say, dealing with all those shades of white. And speaking of which, as we really get closer to a close, what are the best sellers? What's the best selling products?
So our lip glosses are our best sellers. I actually brought one of our best sellers. It's called Bear. This is literally like an everyday clear lip gloss that you can wear. I actually have some on right now on top of another color. But our lip glosses are our best sellers. And then since we dropped foundation last year, ladies have loved it. And since we only offer 4 colors, a lot of times people do have to mix them. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep hitting this mic. But literally, the foundation, our lip gloss, and we have like very popular like lipstick colors, like in the pinks and reds. So I think today I didn't bring a red, but I did bring one of like our like sky high lip glosses, and this is a shea butter based lipstick too. Okay. But the ladies love it; they just do. And then we just actually started releasing stickers, so people can support us like on their like computers, their bags, and stuff like that, so that we can create more brand recognition. But yeah. Those are some of the best sellers. Okay,
that's what. And how do people connect? How do people go online and buy it, or go to a store? How do you want people to buy it?
Of course, always go directly to our website, but www.forhercosmetics.com, and that's FORHER cosmetics. And then we are on social media like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And well, Twitter you can't buy, I don't believe on there, but Instagram and Facebook allows you to shop there. And then we always do pop-ups, especially during the summer. This is like our busiest season, like at the Hope Village Farmers Market every Wednesday. And then now we're at East Warren Farmers Market every Thursday and Beacon Park every Saturday.
Okay. So Beacon Park, Hope Village, if you're in my neighborhood, Cool Cities Park, that's right off Oakland. And then you, more than likely, you're going to meet Alyssa or one of the reps. This is definitely cool. So classic Detroit question. Your very first car, year, make, and model, what year did you get it?
I had a white Aztec Pontiac.
Okay. What year, model?
It was a... Dang, what year was that car? My mom gave it to me when I was 16. So when they stopped making Pontiacs? I don't remember the year. I think it was 2000 something.
Okay. And what year did you get it?
I got it when I was 16. So that had to be like 2009.
Okay. Where's the first place you went when you got the car?
Wow, that's a good question. I probably went to school in that car.
So you drove to school?
Back and forth to school because the gas gauge was broke, so I didn't really try to go too far in it.
Okay, you didn't want to know.
I didn't know how much gas was in there ever.
Yes. Gas gauge being broke is a tough car challenge.
Mom, please come get me. I'll run out of gas.
Especially right now. If you got a broke gas gauge now, boy,
Look,
you really rolling the dice. So, if you were DJing at the end of the fireworks at Woodward and Jefferson, you get to play 3 songs. What 3 songs you playing?
I would play "Ice Me Out" by Cash Doll. I love me some Cash Doll.
Okay.
I would also play. I like gospel music.
Okay.
He Saw the Best in Me. Is that the name of it? I would play that too.
Oh, from Marvin Sapp?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I probably would play something Megan Thee Stallion. What song do I like by her? Plan B.
Okay. All right. Well, we rocking. It's gonna be like it's gonna be stunting to.
Lord Jesus.
To like definitely like inspirational.
Yes.
To partying again.
Yes.
It's like
that's me.
Okay. So like a little party, a little inspiration, a lot of hard work, and definitely bossing up. Last question: if you could rename Woodward after one Detroiter, who would it be and why?
I would name it after my mom.
Why?
Because she is just like, when I tell you my mom is literally done as like the standard, like I know when I have kids, I got a bar to meet because she is literally like my biggest supporter, like everything from business. She's involved in our sorority, like giving back to the community. She is a hustler. Like my mama, I'm lost for words, but yes, I would name it after Donna.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So this was great having you on Detroit is Different. And
Thank you.
In the journey.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Peace.
Peace out, y'all.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.